The Jazz Spotlight, episode 28. Hello, Jazz Spotlight fans. How's it going? Jani Lunga here, and welcome to this 28th episode of the Jazz Spotlight podcast. Like always, I hope you're having a great week. Plenty of great things have happened to you, and I'm happy that you're with me today because this is a great episode, not only because of the great guest I have here for you today, but also because it's the first episode that features the opportunities to submit your questions and hear them answered live by the guests. I mean, how cool is that? To learn more about the upcoming guests, you should follow me on Twitter at Jazz Spotlight, where I tweet about who's gonna come on the show on the following week, so you can make sure that you will check who's coming and you can submit your questions. And to submit your questions, it's very easy. You just go to thejazzspotlight.com/podcast. Then you scroll to the bottom and there is an orange button where you can just press record your question and submit it and hear it answered live by the guest. It's incredible. Obviously, it's a new system and it's gonna grow. So, I can't tell you for sure that your question is going to be featured on the podcast because I expect many who are going to start to taking advantage of this opportunity. But I think it's a great thing. It's really fun, especially in the case like today where we have an artist, because it's a unique opportunity to say hello and hear the answer. So today's guest is one of the most popular contemporary and smooth jazz artists. I mean, if you listen to the radio, whether on the radio or online radios, I'm pretty sure you have heard at least one of his songs. And he has released a new EP just last week. It's very new, called Breathe. And he's here to tell us more about Breathe, about his career, and also about the upcoming gig that he's gonna have at Yoshi's in Oakland. He's gonna have gigs starting from tomorrow until Sunday, a show for the celebration of his 20th anniversary tour. And what is great is that there's gonna be an album recorded during these shows. He's Brian Culbertson here, and he's gonna tell us more about the great things he's doing. Like always, you can find the links to all the great things Brian and I talked about at thejazzspotlight.com/episode 28. Here is a Jazz Talk with Brian Culbertson. Enjoy. Hey everybody, what's up? I'm Jani Lunga here and I'm super excited. I have another great guest here. And when you have this kind of guests, it's always difficult where to start from, with the introduction, because there is so much to talk about this guest. Tomorrow, if you're in Oakland, you probably have already marked this date on your calendar, because from tomorrow until Sunday, he's gonna be at the Yoshi's Jazz Club. And it's gonna be a special event because he's gonna record an album for his 20th anniversary tour, which is really exciting. And, you remember maybe from episode 21 when we talked with Jamie Cullum about performing and, about people that do it all. Guess what? Today we have another person that does it all. He plays the synthesizer, the piano, the trombone, the drums, the trumpet. He's also Jazz Festival organizers of the Napa Valley Jazz Getaway. And he's here with us. It's with great pleasure that I welcome on the show Brian Culbertson. Hey, Brian, how are you?
I'm great. How you doing?
I'm fantastic. Hey,
Nice.
Thank you for being with us today.
Thanks for the invitation. Yeah.
You are a very busy man, because I was checking your Twitter page before we started this chat, and I saw so many people excited about your latest piano relaxation CD, Breathe. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So just last week, I released a 31-minute solo piano piece. It's continuous music, and it's really just about trying to relax. Whether you do yoga or meditation or just trying to de-stress or, try to fall asleep too. This just kind of inspired me. I wanted to do something to help people. It's because, as you know, music can be very healing,
Hmm.
and there's so much crazy stuff going on in the world today. I think people need to now, take some time for themselves now and then, and hopefully this will help a few people out there. So there you have it. It's on my website or on iTunes. So check it out. It's called Breathe.
No, yeah, definitely. And it was cool to read the comments because it was really about people. There's nothing better to do than listening to, Breathe after work or just before going to sleep or
Yeah.
while enjoying a glass of wine. I think it's great comments that you got.
Oh, definitely. Everyone uses that for a different purpose, and whatever you need in your life, hopefully it will serve something for you. So.
Hmm. Definitely. And before we go more into depth about the big date tomorrow at Yoshi's,
Yeah.
and also to talk about another long night out, let's take a couple of steps back to the beginnings of your career. How did you start with music?
Well, when I was a kid, I started about 8 years old, traditional classical piano lessons.
Hmm.
And from there, I just started experimenting with other instruments, picked up the drum set, started playing along with some of my favorite records on drum set,
Hmm.
like Earth, Wind, and Fire and Toto and Chicago, those kind of bands. Just tried to learn those drum grooves, play along with those records. Then I got into fifth grade, and that's when the school band programs mostly start in the U.S. And so there weren't any piano players in the school bands,
Hmm.
and the drum parts were really, really simple. So I was already playing drum sets. So I said, you know what, let me pick up a wind instrument. So I tried out the trombone, and for some reason I could just kind of naturally play it. I wasn't very good at saxophone, so I was like, I'm not going to try that. But I picked up the trombone, I could just start wailing on it. So I was like, this is for me. So then I just kept playing, and it was about junior high school. I was around 12. I started composing my own music, and that's when I started getting really, really excited about playing music and writing my own stuff. And that's when I knew, I was like, okay, this is really cool. I want to do this, because every time I'd sit down and start writing and composing, I would just get really, really excited, and a whole sense of euphoria would come over me, and I'd be like, okay, I want to do this. So that's really all I wanted to do throughout all of high school and college, and that's obviously where I'm at. So it worked out.
No, it definitely has. And you talked about composing and how exciting it is. And it's unbelievable that you have written or produced over 25 number one smooth jazz hits on Billboard radio charts, R&R and Gavy radio charts. It's unbelievable. What is the secret between composing a great song? What do you think?
Well, number one, I believe it's the melody. You need a great melody that is catchy, yet not too simple, but something that captures people's imaginations, takes them somewhere, and they can also hum along. So it can't be too complex either.
Hmm.
So there's that kind of middle line of interesting yet not too crazy. And that's writing a good melody. And it's a lot harder than you think it might be. I mean, it's I mess around for hours or days messing with a different melody just to make sure that it's a great melody.
Hmm.
There's a fine line between a mediocre one, a song that you might not remember, and a big hit. So I really, really work hard on crafting those melodies. And number two, it becomes nowadays, with so many different sounds at
Hmm.
your fingertips, a big part of a hit record is also the production of the track and the overall sound of it. Used to be that didn't be used to be part of a hit song. Back in the olden times where it was just all acoustic instruments and everyone sort of had the same palette. Now, with keyboards and synthesizers and computers and all these samples, yeah, it's an endless supply a different sound. So creating a whole new sonic palette each time that you're working on a song is important as well. Something that's innovative, fresh, and distinctive.
Mm-hmm.
So, just sometimes a song will come on the radio and you instantly know it from the intro because of a certain sound or something that it's doing. So, I think it's kind of the combination of the overall sound of a track and then, of course, the melody or a hook that really is memorable.
And speaking of hooks, there are quite many hooks in your latest album, Another Long Night Out, where many people, as soon as there are a couple of songs that people are really, as soon as they hear it, maybe for 3 seconds, are like, okay, Brian's song is coming.
Cool.
And can you tell us a little bit about Another Long Night Out? Where did you get the inspiration for that album?
Well, I mean, it's a complete remake of my first record, Long Night Out. So those first songs that I wrote, I was 20 years old, and a few of those songs I had written prior to that as well, back into high school. That album for me was my most, I guess, in a way, almost most creative, because I was not in the business yet. I was just a kid writing music and making tracks that I thought were personally interesting and something cool. So I wasn't thinking about selling records. I wasn't thinking about any fans because I didn't have any fans. Nobody knew who I was back then. I was just writing music, again, that I thought was cool. So really the inspiration was all of the music that I listened to growing up. That really was thrown into my first album, and you'll hear little inspirations from different people, whether it be the Yellow Jackets or Earth, Wind and Fire or Chick Corea or Pat Metheny or David Sanborn or any of these different artists. You kind of jumble it all up, and that's who you become as your own artist. Really listening to all these things over the years, and it just it seeps into you by osmosis in a way.
Yeah.
through your ears. And there it was. It really wasn't a conceptual album. It was more of, hey, let me just write some cool music. And that's what it was. So, in remaking it, I wanted to retain that, initial spirit of the album and yet bring it into today's production technology and great musicianship. Hiring all these incredible musicians that, I've said this many times, many of the guys that kind of inspired me to want to make that first album in the first place.
Yeah.
And that's who's on this new version.
No, definitely. I get it. And about inspirations, you mentioned very many big names that inspired you 20 years ago, and I'm sure that they're still inspiring you today.
Sure.
Is there someone in particular, perhaps some new artist that you've heard recently that you've been like, this kid can really play, or this gal can really play?
Well, I think several years ago, I first heard a young sax player, Eric Darius, and he really blew me away. And I immediately said, "Hey, man, let's get together, hang out for lunch or something." And so I said, "Man, what are you doing next year?" I said, "You want to go on tour?" He's like, "Sure." So he joined my band, and he was playing with me for a couple of years, and ended up producing a couple of his songs for him. And then he's obviously gone on to do a lot of great things himself, and we've stayed good friends. And so he's definitely one of the newer artists out there. Actually, not as new anymore, but still about 10 years younger than me. So I still think of him as a New York artist.
Yeah. And now, 20 years after, what do you think has been perhaps the biggest challenge to your career as a musician?
Oh man, that's a good question. I think one of the things.
Sorry to interrupt. You can be even a couple of challenges.
Yeah, sure. I think number one, it was getting that initial audience. I think it just takes time. A lot of people see artists out there in their current state and thinking, "Oh man, they just came out of nowhere and blew up and this and that, but really it's been a slow, gradual climb for me over the 20 years to where I'm at this point. Was there an individual hard challenge? I don't know. It's always seemed challenging every little step of the way, from making the first record to going out on my first tour. I mean, every tour that we do and every album that I make is always challenging in its own right. So I don't think any one thing actually stands out.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of a long, slow grind. That doesn't sound good, but of course it's fun along the way. You're making music, you're doing what you love to do. So, I wouldn't want to do anything else in the world. So, there you have it.
And if you were to give some advice to a young musician that is listening to you and perhaps is struggling with his or her career, what would you tell him or her?
Well, I think it's a different kind of world nowadays in terms of getting your new music out there. Before it was always about, okay, I need a record deal with a label so that they can promote me and make me famous. Right. These days, not as much about that as, it is about creating your own, awareness out there using obviously, social media and YouTube. You got to have your own videos, whether it's just you playing in your bedroom or with a band in a local club. You got to get your own videos out there and create also a local following wherever you're from. Got to do as many gigs as you can locally to get that following up there so that you can slowly become known outside of your hometown. Also try to align yourself with some other artists that are already known in your genre. Try to meet them through other musicians. It's about networking. And something like Eric Darius did, he was able to join my band and from touring with me for a couple years, got his name out there more so than just doing his own shows locally. So I tell a lot of young jazz artists, hey, maybe you can work with some other established names for a year, 2, 3 years, however many years it makes sense, just to get your name out there. Maybe you can be featured during their set, or even play on some other records. I mean, it's a slow process, but again, it's about who do you know in the business and who can you hang out with and go to other clubs and meet other musicians. The more people you know, the more people are going to talk about you. And it's really a combination of all these things.
Yeah. No, definitely. I agree with you. And it's nice that you mentioned some of the things we talked about in the past with some guests. For example, on episode 8 with Christophe de Gelt, we talked about music management and booking, and he really emphasized the importance of networking. Like you said, you made the example of a musician looking for established musicians, and also about building a local fan base, building an audience. It's something that we talked about on episode 24 with Nicola Milan when she talked about the different types of gigs, and she really emphasized the types of gigs with which artists can build a local fan base. And also about the videos, I just published an article about the potential of hangouts on air for musicians. The great opportunities that musicians could take advantage of by using hangouts on air, like doing videos, like you say, streaming concerts. I even wrote about why not having a monthly, for example, Q&A with your fans. I think that would be great. I think that, it's an advice for many artists out there.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I've actually done several Ustream chats to where I will do exactly that. People can Twitter in questions, and then I will be on the video. They can see me and hear me, and I'll answer as many questions as I can. Sometimes they come in really quick, and I'll miss some, but that's a lot of fun. I'm definitely going to do another one this fall. I don't do them that often, but I will certainly do them when I have new projects coming out. So I'm due for one of those. So thanks for reminding me.
Hey, you're very
Yeah.
welcome. And to all of our listeners, make sure to check and follow Brian Culbertson on Twitter so that you are updated with the latest things coming up and also this kind of Q&As. And now let's talk about tomorrow, about the 20th anniversary tour and the recording that is going to take place at Yoshi's in
Yeah.
Oakland. What can people expect from this concert?
Well, this concert this weekend that I'll be doing is basically the same show that I've been doing this year,
Hmm.
which in March I put together what I'm calling the 20th anniversary tour show. And really it's kind of a whole mix of songs from my entire catalog. Almost every album is represented in this show. Starts off and ends with the introduction to my first song, which was City Lights off my first album. So people that have been following me since then, the beginning of the show and the end of the show, it kind of caps the beginning of my career and where I'm at now. So it starts off with that which was kind of an iconic beginning to that first record, the Long Night Out record,
Hmm.
and now another Long Night Out. So it's really kind of shows the arc of my whole career, and we do a lot of the funk songs. We do some vocal collaborations, which is when I was doing more R&B stuff, and of course a lot of the contemporary jazz stuff mixed in as well. So really a big a mix of all those tunes.
And it sounds really excited and it's exciting. And I saw that actually the gigs for Saturday are already sold out, but there's still opportunities for tomorrow, for Friday and Sunday. So if you want to, to be part of this great experience and most importantly, to see Brian Culbertson live, make sure to head over to Oakland at the Yoshi's Jazz Club. And now that you mentioned this kind of full circle of the set list that you play from the first song to the
Yeah.
most recent songs, I have a question about how do you put together a set list? Because you have made so many albums, so many songs. How do you make sure that, those that have maybe just found out about you, they get songs that they know, but also those that have been with you for 20 years,
Yeah.
get the full plate in a way?
Yeah, it's definitely not easy. Of course, having now 14 studio albums out, inevitably people will come to your shows and be disappointed. Oh, well, you didn't play my favorite song. And I'm like, wow, I barely remember that song. So, it's definitely tough, but when you only have an hour and a half show, let's say, to do all of my songs, it'd be a 9-hour show. What are you going to do? But, I try to just include a lot of the songs that most people, that are fans of the genre would be familiar with. It'd be like, cause I think it's great to play all those songs that people know. People want to hear, quote unquote, the hits. And, if you don't play a lot of those, you're going to get a lot of disappointed fans. If you go out to hear U2, you want to hear those songs that and have been listening to for years. So that's really number one. And number two, I want to play the songs that really translate live well, that are exciting, that I can, I'm always changing up the arrangements to my songs, from year to year to year to keep it exciting and fresh for people that do come out to the shows at least once a year. And a lot of people come to multiple shows, a year, but from year to year, I always change it up, mess around with the arrangements just to keep it fresh and exciting, not only for the fans, but for myself and my band too. That have been playing these songs for years and years. So, that's really how I come up with a set list. Number one, trying to make sure that I play as many of the songs that people know as possible, but then throwing in some of the new material as well, and then playing some of the older stuff. It's just nice to play some of those old songs. A lot of people were not familiar with my first album, because they might have discovered me along the way. So playing some of those songs that people don't know is cool as well, so that they can go back and discover
some
of those older songs. So
yeah, definitely. And on episode 26, there was a singer, Cyril Aimé, and then she talked about different things. And she talked about performing and, interaction with the audience. What kind of tips you have, or what are some of your strategies in a way when you perform? How do you interact with audiences?
Well, there's several ways to do it. Number one, I'm always looking directly at the audience and trying to engage with them just visually, whether it be making eye-to-eye contact or hand clapping and try to get them to clap along or sing along. That's really important as well. And then we try to do some simple choreography as well with the band to try to make sure there's a lot of movement going on stage. I mean, I'm such a fan of Earth, Wind and Fire, and I remember seeing them when I was a kid, just and remembering how exciting their shows were. And they were really the best mix of great musicianship and great showmanship. And I really strive to do that in our shows as well. Something that not everybody is really cognizant about. There's so many great jazz players that kind of stand there or have their back to the audience, that don't really care about the audience, and they're just kind of playing. And okay, well that's good and fine, but I don't know. Sometimes in my mind, I'd be like, well, why don't you just stay home and listen to the record then? I think people want to go out and forget about the world and just be entertained for a couple hours. That's just kind of my philosophy. Every musician's different, and they do what they do, but that's kind of my thing. So definitely want to have an entertaining show. People go away and say, wow, that was fun and great to listen to. And I really, think about the whole presentation of not only the staging and the musicianship, but also the sonics of how does the mix sound in the house. I'm always going out there during sound checks, working with my sound engineer, making sure it sounds great as well. So there's so many factors that go into making a great show, I think, and I'm really thinking about all of those.
Yeah, it's great to hear, because sometimes it happens that maybe some venues have an acoustic that in a way affects the quality of the performance.
Yeah.
And I also totally agree with you about the experience, because we are people. So when one is in the audience, then obviously it depends also from the kind of music, but still people like to get emotions and to get involved and engaged, and even if it's with the clapping or dancing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And Brian, you are doing so many things. You are composing, you are playing, you are producing, and you're also a festival director of the Napa Valley Jazz Getaway, which you founded in 2011. Tell us a little bit about that experience. How did you come up with the idea of starting that event?
Well, I've obviously done a lot of different events throughout the years, from many different festivals and shows, and I've done a lot of the jazz cruises as well, which are a lot of fun. And what I've realized is people love what I'm calling kind of a lifestyle event, to where it's combining the concerts with a vacation or some sort of theme.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not a lot of these types of events for the contemporary jazz genre out there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just started thinking, where do people want to go, and what would be a fun getaway for people that enjoy this music? And what else do people that enjoy this music like? And one of the most obvious answers is wine. Wine and jazz just they go together.
Mm-hmm.
They're just into both of those things a lot of the times. And it was several years ago. My wife and I were on an anniversary trip, and we spent about 10 days up in Napa Valley. And during that time, we both really just kind of fell in love with that lifestyle. It's so beautiful up there. We also ended up meeting a lot of the winery owners during that trip, and realized that many of the people up there are also musicians. And there's a real great connection between the arts and food and wine up in Napa Valley. And so a couple years after that, I was keeping in touch with people up there. It just sort of hit me, whoa, why don't I put something together? And so I, called a few of my friends that I obviously kept in touch with, and just kind of floated this idea by them. And one of my friends, Steve Gage, and I ended up talking for about 3 hours one day, just totally brainstorming on what we could do. Because number one, that area didn't have any music or jazz festivals going on. And there really weren't that many concerts for this kind of music in the area. So I knew there was number one, a void in that market. Number two, my fans or fans of the genre, I believed would love hanging out there. And so it's actually worked out. So as it turns out, it was a good idea. So we're about to go into our 4th year next June. And we're going to be announcing the lineup here in a couple weeks. And man, next year's lineup is really, really phenomenal. I can't wait to tell everyone. I can't say anything today, but when you find out, you're going to be like, whoa, that's pretty cool. Yeah. So we've been building up to it. The first 3 years, we've had great lineups, but we're definitely growing and continuing to grow. And as the word gets out more and more and more, we can certainly get more and more artists to come as well. So
yeah, and then also when you get a couple of years under your belt as director, I think it's easier. And people, as I said moments ago, you have to to follow Brian Culbertson on Twitter, also Facebook, so that you are updated with all the great things. Especially also now that he has given us this news that in a couple of weeks there's gonna be the first names of the lineup of the Napa Valley Jazz Getaway. And what if there was something that you would do differently in your career? What would it be?
Oh, wow. Ooh, that's a good question. One thing, I mean, I think a lot of musicians would maybe say this. I don't know, but I wish I would have practiced more piano. I wish I were better. I mean, I always want to get better. I guess that's a sign of a musician that cares. I wish I were a better piano player. And everyone's like, oh my God, you're great, you're great, you're great. We're like, well, okay, fine. But I don't know. I wish I had more time to devote to just sit down and practice and become better and better and better and better and better. But there's so many things going on. And I'm kind of spread out doing this, and this and that. It is what it is. Number one, I'm happy. So there is that. A lot of people can't say that. They're happy with what they're doing in life. So I'm in a great place there. So no complaints. But I don't know. What else can I say? I'm making records and touring, and I don't know how to say I would do anything differently other than what I just said. But, it's easy to say that, but all I can do is try to do that more in the future. How about that?
Yeah, no, but I think it was a great answer, and it's nice to hear that despite your level at the piano, your performances, and the thousands of fans you have around the world, you are still thinking that it would be great to have more time to practice the piano.
Yeah.
And you have so many exciting things coming up. I'm looking at your website right now, and you're pretty busy now. This week you are in Oakland, then you're gonna be in New Jersey, you're gonna be at the Las Vegas Jazz Festival, in Newport Beach in California, a couple more dates. In Atlanta, you're gonna be traveling quite a lot at the in Phoenix at the Arizona Jazz Festival, and then in January you're gonna be at the Smooth Jazz Cruise that you mentioned a moment ago.
Yeah.
Don't you ever get tired of traveling this much?
Well, it's constantly on the move. Yeah, it can be a little grueling, but I try to travel as well as I can. Number one, you try to get here's what I do. I try to get direct flights in the middle of the day so I don't have to get up at 4 a.m. Some musicians like to take the first flight out all the time, and I'm like, what are you doing? You're getting up at like 4 or 3:30 or 4 to go catch a 6 a.m. flight. Oh man, I can't do that anymore. I used to do that. So I try to travel nicely and try to stay in a decent hotel. Number two, I bring my own pillows and sheets. Some people say, wow, that's kind of weird, but I've learned that every hotel you stay in, it's like a totally different situation with what kind of sheets they have. Sometimes they're scratchy. It drives me mad. Or their pillows are too big or too soft. So I've found that bringing my own help with sleep, because sleep is so important when you're touring. If you're not getting enough sleep, then you get cranky and then you just don't feel well, and then you can't perform at the level that you want to perform at. So that's one thing that I've found is really important. So all you young musicians out there, make sure you're sleeping and not partying too much while you're on the road. Drink lots of water too. You got to hydrate. So and eating well as well. All on tour is not the easiest thing, but you got to really, really try. So avoid the pizza and wings after the show. No pizza, wings, and beer after the show. It's so easy because it's just all over the place, man.
All
Yeah,
right.
I'll eat like a vitamin bar and drink water. That's my situation. But
So so that's the Brian Culbertson diet. No,
yeah,
jokes aside, I agree with you. It's really important to get a good amount of sleep and relax after a hard day of work or while touring. And there's probably no better way to relax and chill than listening to some great Brian Culbertson music. Okay, so Brian, now we have a new feature of the Jazz Spotlight podcast where we have fans asking you questions. How cool is that?
Oh, nice. Yeah, very cool.
And we have a couple of questions for you. So let's hear the first.
Okay.
So this is Tamara Collins from Southern California, and I am a huge Brian Culbertson fan. I love everything he's ever done, all 14 albums, well, 15, if you count the new Breeze EP that dropped last week. I have listened to it over and over again over the past few days, and it's so beautiful, just brilliant. It's such a good idea, so relaxing. I absolutely love it. The Napa Jazz Getaways, absolutely fabulous. I'm already looking forward to year 4. I can't wait to just hear the lineup and what he has in store for us for another year. But I'm most excited about the live album that's being recorded later this week. There is no way I could miss being a part of this. So my question to Brian is, what do you have in store for us coming up at Yoshi's? Any surprises you can hint at? Maybe tell us a few songs in the set list. Come on, give us something. Okay, and then also, when do you anticipate that the album will drop? All right, so those are my questions, and I look forward to seeing you guys later this week. Thanks.
Hey, Tamara. Thanks for the call. Yeah, that's awesome. So the new live album is going to come out January 12th, 2015. So just a few months away. It's actually my birthday. So, as it turns out. So that'll be fun. In terms of what to expect and in the set list, yeah, it's mainly going to be the show that we have been doing this whole year. But there is going to be a brand new song that I wrote with Sheldon Reynolds. So, brand new song. No one's heard it yet. So very excited to play that. And there's going to be some new musicians on stage too. So yeah, you'll see that on Friday. Had to add a little bit to the live recording So you'll see. Okay, cool. Thanks for the call.
Thanks, Brian. And here comes the second question.
Hello, my name is Eddie Mweketi from South Africa. My question is for Brian Culbertson. I would like to know to Brian. Hi, Brian. When are you paying us a visit sometime in South Africa to come and play your beautiful music? I'm a very, very, very big fan of yours and would love to see you here one day. Thank you very much.
Hey, Addie, thanks for your call. Yeah, I would absolutely love to go to South Africa. I've had a couple opportunities that just haven't panned out for some reason, but definitely am awaiting the invitation from either a jazz festival or some promoter down there. So, what I would say to anybody, around the world, if you want me to come there, I would definitely get a bunch of your friends together and all put requests into wherever you go to see music, whether it be a jazz club or a jazz festival in your area or any venue, and just put a request in for me, because really that's how it works. The more requests a particular festival or venue gets for an artist, they'll start paying attention to that and reach out to my booking agent, and then they'll give us a call, and hopefully we'll be there soon. So thanks again, and start rounding up the troops and make it happen, and I'll be there.
Brian, I want to thank you so much for being on the podcast and for this great interview.
Well, it was my pleasure to be here, and I appreciate the invitation.
My pleasure. Have a great time in Yoshi and all the upcoming dates.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Hey, thank you. And we are back. That was awesome. Great interview. Brian, if you're listening, thank you so much for being on the podcast and, telling us a little bit more about the great things that you're doing. And also thank you, Eddie and Tamara, for submitting your questions. Well done. It was really exciting, and I'm sure you're really happy about this. And don't forget to tweet about it with your friends and followers. And again, as I told you, from now on, I'm going to tweet about the upcoming guests of the show on Twitter at Jet Spotlight. So if you are interested in asking questions, you can just submit them. It takes just a minute. It's plenty of fun. And please, I'm asking you, please keep your questions coming, because it's gonna be really exciting both for you and the guests, and I'm sure there's gonna be great questions and great answers. So keep them coming. Go to thejetspotlight.com/podcast and record your question. And I want to ask you for a small favor. If you have enjoyed the podcast so far, this episode with Brian, and now that there is the opportunity to submit questions, would you like to help out and go to thejetspotlight.com/show, and you will be redirected to the iTunes page of the podcast. I'd like to ask you for a minute of your time for a review and some ratings. That would really help the podcast in the rankings in iTunes and will help more people that are interested in jazz and the music industry to find out more about the podcast. So thank you in advance for doing that. I really appreciate it. And if you do, please send me a tweet so that I can thank you personally. I'd love to do that. This is it for today, guys. Thanks for spending these 40 minutes with me, for having me being part of your days. Maybe you're taking a walk, you're having a glass of wine, you're at the gym. Thanks for giving me a moment of your time with the Jazz Spotlight podcast. I'm Yanni Lunga, and I'll see you next week. Take care.